This is episode 160 of Zen and the Art of Real Estate Investing with my guest, Paul Thompson. Paul is a best-selling author, full-time real estate investor, coach, hard money lender, and the host of the Wake Up Call podcast and the founder of One Call Capital. Paul, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. This is going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah. I'm always excited to talk to investors about their background and also find out what they still like about investing because it's an interesting time now. But let's get to where you started. When was the first time when you were younger that you remember being interested in real estate?
That's a good question. I came to real estate much later in life, and I did not grow up being an entrepreneur minded. I wanted to not be poor, so I went and got a regular degree, engineering degree, and got a paying job. And it wasn't until many years later that I actually pulled the trigger on buying property. But I did spend some time in my early mid-20s thinking about real estate. My wife and I kind of put together kind of our master plan of how we want to do things. And one of those was in doing investments and having some rental properties. But it took us a while to get there.
Yeah. What do you think the crux was that got you from having it on the kind of bucket list of things to do to actually doing it at the time?
Yeah, we settled in to life. Got married, had kids, got fat, lived the American
the typical
dream.
trajectory.
Yeah, right. That's what we do, right? And just kind of lost track of it. And I got pulled into my responsibilities at work and just kind of lived that life for a while. And I had a bit of a wake up call moment when I went on a beach vacation where I was given the chance to extend my vacation by a week because the beach house that we were staying in became available suddenly.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, this is great. We got a big discount. The kids are out of school. My wife doesn't work. I work for a telecom. So we make the technology of remote work possible.
Yeah.
I was a director at the time, I think, and I had lots of employees, but they all worked someplace else. Like all of my calls were teleconferences anyway. So I just called my boss up and kind of explain the situation. I'll stay at the beach next week. And he's like, oh no, we don't do that here. I expect your tail back at the office Monday at 8:00. Click.
Yeah.
It wasn't a conversation. It wasn't, I appreciate your years of service. It was, let's figure out some kind of solution. It wasn't a question. It was like, we don't do that here. Click. And it was a wake up call for me that realized that I just was not that important to that company. And I was vulnerable. I was a single income family.
Yeah.
And I needed that job more than they needed me.
I think that really goes for any business, and in real estate investing, I've found, and I want to get your take on it. It's that a lot of people get into either wholesaling, flipping, multifamily investing, but they don't treat their company like a business. They really just still treating it as a side job where they're farming everything out. And that's where you can lose a ton of money. Have you seen that now across the board, especially with your experience?
Very common mistake. And I think a lot of people who even think of it as a business think they're running a business or think they own a business when in fact they're just self-employed.
It's another job. I mean, it's like having a second 9 to 5 when you start to do it well.
Yeah. So you want to be careful that you're not jumping from the frying pan into the fire. And that's very much what you're doing when you become a self-employed person. And don't get me wrong, you may have to go through the process of becoming a self-employed person, but you need to then build the business around you and elevate yourself up to actually being the CEO, the chief executive, and not the chief everything officer. And that's the mistake most of us make, is we stay the chief everything officer forever.
What was the first property that you guys bought? And then how did you go out from there?
Yeah, the very first property that I bought was in Little Rock, Arkansas, which is where I live. And it was a 3-bedroom, 1-bath built in the 1940s, I think. And it was in bad shape. And I bought it for $30,000. And I put $10,000 of rehab into it. And then after I rented it, refinanced it, played the BRRRR strategy.
Yeah.
And this was in 2015. So it was the rates were a little more competitive then.
Yeah.
And so I was able to refinance all of my money back out and pay my private money lender off and with interest. And then I had a cash flowing property that, was probably making $100 a month in net cash flow. It wasn't going to change my life, but it proved to me this experiment actually worked. It was a very good proof of concept. And when I got that first rent check in, it was like, I was hooked. It was like, there we go. Like, this is what I'm talking about, because
Yeah.
I didn't really have to do anything for the subsequent months after that for the rent to come in. Right.
Yeah.
So I had to learn a lot of things, and you have to learn management, and you have to learn how to structure and all thing, get rehab. But it was something where I was doing a one for many transaction of value. It wasn't no longer a transaction where I was spending my hour and getting, so many dollars back in time and
Yeah.
of revenue. Right.
If you take the money, the compound effect of money, and apply it to what you're learning about real estate, it's pretty simple. I've always said, for people who are looking, they always say, "Oh, I want a mentor. I need to learn." I'm like, just go to a local real estate meetup as many times as they hold it for 6 months. You'll never have to ask for a mentor. You won't have to buy a class, because you're going to meet all people who are doing the same thing. Again, like we were talking about before, with that similar buy-in, because it doesn't always have to be money. Sometimes it's just showing up. And if you
Mhm.
show up 2 times a month for 6 months, that's 12 real estate investor meetups. You're bought in. And the three other people who attended all the meetings are also bought in.
Yep.
And there's the crew that lifts you up from where we started, where it's like you're talking to your friends, they don't like real estate, but now you have these three new people and all they talk about is real estate. You'll be at a different level, but it goes back to what you were saying. You can't get that compound effect without the consistency of the business.
And I'll double down on what you just said, which is so insightful. So those 3 or 4 people that you meet at that meetup that you consistently go to, like, the people who show up and they're actually doing deals and not just there just feeling like they're smart, they're actually doing the business. Like, that's your new mastermind.
Yeah.
That's your free local mastermind, and it may take you coordinating having that breakfast once a week or having
Right.
lunch once a week or whatever, right? And so we did that here in our town, and we have 12 people and we meet regularly. And I'm actually probably the least consistent of the group. But when we first started it, I was like the founder, me and another investor. We kind of founded it, and we collected the top 10 or 12 people in our market that we liked, that were actually doing the business and had this like open curiosity. And anytime I have a question about something that's going on locally in our jurisdiction, which sometimes can be unique,
Yeah.
wherever you live, there's the local stuff going on. They know they're there on the boards and they're paying attention. And that is so helpful when you are growing to the business. And what's really cool is we hold each other accountable. Like we've set goals. Or actually, I'm the one that doesn't do this because I've kind of splintered off. But
Yeah.
these guys, they meet every week and they have been for like 5 years, and they're doing fantastic.
Yeah.
And that's available to you if you want to do that in your own market right now. If you just go and do what you said.